Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with a question that might shake you a little. Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, if only I had done what I promised myself last year, my life would look completely different today? Be honest. How many promises have you broken to yourself? You told yourself you'd start working out, but your treadmill has become a towel rack. You said you'd wake up early, but now your alarm clock fears you, because every morning it gets slapped like it owes you money. You said you'd save money, but somehow one little sale becomes a full shopping cart. That's not bad luck. That's you versus you. And trust me, it's the toughest match in the world, because your opponent you knows all your weaknesses, all your excuses, all your shortcuts. See, everyone says, I want to be successful, but very few are ready to defeat the version of themselves that's lazy, scared, and addicted to comfort. Let's talk real. When you open your phone to work and suddenly find yourself watching 20 reels of cats dancing, that's not distraction. That's you avoiding you. When you say, I'll start tomorrow, it's not procrastination. It's fear disguised as a plan. Look at successful people. They don't fight others, they fight themselves. Elon Musk isn't competing with Jeff Bezos. He's competing with yesterday's Elon, trying to outwork him. Cristiano Ronaldo doesn't train because Messi exists. He trains because he refuses to be weaker than yesterday's Ronaldo. Taylor Swift isn't trying to be better than other singers. She's trying to write songs that outshine her last album. But you don't need to be famous to live this way. Let's talk about the people around us. That student who wakes up at 6 a.m. to study while everyone else sleeps. That's not because she wants to beat her classmates. She just wants to beat the version of herself who used to waste time. That shopkeeper who learns how to use TikTok to sell his products. He's not competing with brands. He's competing with the version of himself who didn't believe he could adapt. That mother who works all day, takes care of her family, and still studies online at night. That's you versus you in its purest form. Now, let's be real for a moment. How many times have you said, I don't have time, but somehow you've watched every episode of a 10-season series, plus the bloopers, plus the behind-the-scenes interviews? You don't lack time, you lack control over you. You versus you means catching yourself when your brain says, just 10 more minutes. Because that 10 more minutes has killed more dreams than failure ever did. And I'll tell you something funny. People think they lose because others are luckier or richer. No. Most people lose because they keep restarting the race every Monday. They start a diet on Monday, quit on Thursday, feel guilty on Friday, restart fresh next Monday. Meanwhile, the other version of them, the disciplined one, is waiting inside screaming, just stay consistent. You versus you is the only game where you can't cheat. You can lie to the world, but you can't lie to the mirror. You just need to win against the version of yourself that keeps holding you back. Because at the end of the day, it's not the world watching you, it's your future self whispering, please don't disappoint me again. You know what's funny, ladies and gentlemen? Most people lose the you versus you battle before their day even starts. Not because life is unfair, but because they start their morning scrolling through other people's lives. You wake up, pick up your phone, and before you even say good morning to yourself, you've already said good morning to 100 strangers on Instagram. And suddenly your brain says, oh look, she's traveling again. He bought a new car. I'm still in bed. That's how the day starts. Not with gratitude, but comparison. But here's the truth. It's not them you're fighting, it's you. You versus the version of you who keeps comparing instead of creating. Let me give you an example. There was this guy I knew, always talking about how he wanted to start a YouTube channel. He had great ideas, funny personality, everything. But every week he'd say, I'll start when I get the perfect camera. 3 years later, the camera is still in his shopping cart, and someone else is making millions using just their phone. You see the difference? One version of him waited, the other version acted. Guess which one won? You versus you means realizing that waiting for perfect is just fear wearing a nice outfit. People think fear shows up as panic or anxiety. No, it shows up as perfectionism. Even big names deal with this. When Steve Jobs was building Apple, he didn't wait for perfection. He launched, learned, and improved. When Serena Williams trained, she wasn't trying to win every single shot. She was trying to win the next one. When Mr. Beast started YouTube, his first videos were filmed on an old webcam, terrible lighting, bad audio, but he kept going. Now, he's the most watched creator in the world, because he chose to fight his own excuses. Let me give you something relatable. You versus you happens every time you say, I'll start working after this one last episode, or I'll study after I'm in the mood, or my favorite one, I'll fix my life after this weekend. Guess what? The weekend comes. You rest. But somehow your problems rest with you. We keep thinking we're fighting time. But time is not your enemy. Your habits are. And habits don't change until you do. You versus you means realizing that success isn't about being fast, it's about being consistent. It's about choosing discipline when nobody's watching. It's about saying, I'll do it now when your brain screams, let's do it later. And if you ever doubt yourself, remember this. The people who are ahead of you aren't smarter. They just stopped arguing with themselves. So tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself one question. Did I win against me today? Not against others, not against the world, just me. Because when you start winning those small private battles, your public victories become unstoppable. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about that little voice in your head. You know, the one that sounds like your personal lawyer whenever you're about to do something productive. You say, let's go for a walk. Your brain says, wait, it's too hot. You say, let's start studying. Your brain says, wait, the room's too noisy. You say, let's work on that idea. Your brain says, you're not ready yet. And the funny thing is, your brain always sounds so reasonable, right? Like it's trying to protect you. But deep down, it's just protecting your comfort zone. You versus you is not a physical fight. It's a mental negotiation. Every day, your mind gives you two choices. Stay the same or become better. And most people, sadly, choose comfort and then complain that life never changes. Let me give you an example. There's a guy named David. He wanted to start running every morning. Day 1, full energy. Day 2, sore legs, but okay. Day 3, alarm rings, and his brain says, it's cloudy today. Running in this weather is dangerous. Guess what? He listened. And that's how the old version of him won. That's how most people lose, one excuse at a time. Now think of someone like Michael Jordan. He used to say, I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career, and that's why I succeed. He didn't win because he never failed. He won because he didn't let the voice of doubt stop him. That's the real difference. Let's bring it closer to home. You ever notice how you encourage your friends more than you encourage yourself? When your friend says, I can't do this, you say, of course you can. You've got this. But when you fail once, your brain says, see, I told you you're not good enough. Why do we become motivational speakers for others and bullies to ourselves? You versus you means learning to change that voice. When you fall, instead of saying, I'm useless, say, okay, lesson learned, let's adjust. When you fail, don't say, it's over. Say, it's feedback. Even famous people had to reprogram their inner voice. Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first TV job because someone told her she wasn't fit for television. If she had listened to that voice, the world would have lost one of its most powerful inspirations. She didn't win against her boss. She won against her own belief that she wasn't enough. Or think of someone like Ed Sheeran. When he started singing, people literally told him he had a bad voice. Today he fills stadiums. Why? Because he told himself, I'll practice until I prove myself wrong. That's you versus you. The battle isn't out there. It's in your thoughts. It's when you wake up and your brain says, you're too tired. It's when you try to learn something new and your brain says, you'll never get it. It's when you dream big and your brain says, people like you don't make it. Let me tell you a secret. That voice never goes away. You just get stronger than it. So the next time your brain says, you can't, smile and whisper back, watch me. Because that's how winners are made, not by fighting the world, but by silencing the war inside. Ladies and gentlemen, let's be honest. The moment you start improving, the old you doesn't just disappear quietly. No, that version fights back hard. The lazy you, the insecure you, the procrastinating you, they all come together like an old friend group planning a comeback party. You say, I'm done wasting time, and your old self whispers, come on, one last movie night won't hurt. You say, I'm done overthinking, and your old self says, wait, let's just analyze this one more time. You say, I'm starting my new routine tomorrow, and the old you says, you've said that before. Why bother? That's the trap. Your old self misses you. It misses the comfort, the excuses, the laziness, the distractions, and every time you grow, that version feels like it's dying, so it fights to survive. Let's make it real. Ever started eating healthy? The first week you're motivated, right? Smoothies, salads, gym selfies. Then one day your brain says, you've been good all week, one donut won't hurt. Next day, 2 donuts. And by the weekend you're saying, might as well start again Monday. That's not a diet problem. That's a you versus you problem. It's like software. When you install a new version of yourself, the old one keeps popping up saying, an update failed, please restart. Now look at people who made it. Do you think they never felt that pull? Of course they did. J.K. Rowling was rejected by 12 publishers before Harry Potter became a success. Imagine if she had listened to her old self saying, maybe I'm not good enough. Or think of Lionel Messi. He was told as a kid he was too small to play professional football. The old version of him could have said, they're right. But he kept training. And now, those same people buy tickets to watch him play. Closer to home, imagine that student who failed an exam and everyone said, you're not smart enough. But instead of giving up, he studies quietly, day by day. No noise, no show-off. Months later, he passes. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove himself right. That's the true victory, when you become what your old self said you couldn't be. And yes, it's painful. Growth always is. Because every time you level up, you have to leave behind an old version of you. And sometimes that version is comfortable, familiar, safe. But tell me, would you rather stay comfortable and regretful or uncomfortable and proud? Here's something funny. People say, I wish life came with a restart button. But it does. It's called tomorrow morning. The problem is, most people use that restart button just to repeat the same day again. You versus you means breaking that cycle. It means saying, I'm not who I was last week. I'm better. It means reminding yourself that the old you had its purpose. It taught you lessons, but it doesn't get to lead your future. Let me tell you this. The world might doubt you, your friends might forget you, and opportunities might pass you. But as long as you don't quit on yourself, no one can stop your comeback. So the next time your old habits whisper, the new you won't last, smile and say, watch me last longer than your excuses. Because you can lose many things in life, but never lose the fight between you versus you. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, life isn't about how many people you beat. It's about how many times you beat yourself. How many times you said, I'm tired, but still kept going. How many times you said, I can't, but still tried one more time. How many times you wanted to quit, but didn't. Because that's where real growth happens, in the quiet battles no one sees. The world claps for your victories, but the real applause should be for those days when you fought alone and still didn't give up. Let me tell you a truth. Nobody likes to say, success doesn't come from motivation. It comes from discipline. Motivation is like Wi-Fi. Sometimes strong, sometimes gone. But discipline, that's data. It works anywhere. You versus you is not a one-day fight. It's a lifetime war. The day you stop growing, your old self will try to take the throne again. So never think, I've made it. Always think, I'm still becoming. Look at the greatest